Welcome back, everybody, to the new and improved Take a Break with Stephen, Mr. Stephen Shamus.
This is Siskel and Ebert, so it's Ray and Shamus, or Shamus and Ray. We
Shamus
like
and
law
Ray.
firm.
Yeah,
sound like a law firm, like a law firm.
I'd go to them if I was in a car accident. First person I'd call, Shamus and Ray.
Right, 1-800
Selena and Barnes.
1-800 Shamus Ray.
Yeah,
but one of them passed away. One
of
the Selena Barnes.
I think like a plane accident, like something crazy.
Yeah,
like not like
something
old age.
Crazy. It was something crazy. All right, what do we got today? What do we got at the movies today, Alex?
We're Dave Stevens eating it up. We're going to talk about a couple books that have Dave Stevens covers and then some other random stuff. We're doing some good random stuff that we've never talked about. We're going to talk about Seduction of the Innocent, the comic book. We're going to talk about Man from U.N.C.L.E, not Army Hammer, not that Man from U.N.C.L E. Jungle Comics, and then Huntress, stuff we haven't talked about.
Mind you, that I'm telling you.
Girl Angelina, she's a princess.
Whoa,
look at this. Is it Halloween? Hey, how
Yeah, you're starting to see some things picking up. You're starting to see some things ticking up, and that's what we're here to do. So, All right, what are we starting with today, Alex?
Yeah, one of your Dave Stevens collectors checklist is a Seduction of the Innocent 3D.
Yeah, so more and more we're starting to see these art collector things, whether it was Sam Keith, Dale Keown, Todd McFarlane, Jim Lee. You're starting to see people who collect very, very specific artists, and they're going back now to try to get these early art covers. And it's really driving the price because the pops are so low that it's very easy for if there's a few collectors out there, even if there's just a handful of serious collectors out there, they start buying it up, it's going to drive these books up.
Yes.
So talk a little bit about Dave Stevens, Alex. Yeah,
Dave Stevens, creator of The Rocketeer, probably the most famous thing he's known for. Passed away very young, was not around to essentially reap the rewards of his career. That is, looking back is not as much as I think everybody wanted. Everybody wants more Dave Stevens stuff. Created The Rocketeer, Disney movie, great property, fantastic movie. I think in the same vein as like an Indiana Jones, maybe if we could have gotten some more out of it, we would have gotten a couple more movies. Definitely these days we would have. And this is a weird book because it's Seduction of the Innocent, which was the essentially the novel written by a psychiatrist that made the comics code. But the comic and the book have nothing to do with each other. The book is actually a reprint of a horror comic that was never printed, and it was Adventures into Darkness number 15.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what's the contents of this comic is that comic from 1952. So another weird, wacky thing about this book. But it's a 3D book, and that was really, really crazily hot in the 80s.
Those were popular, right? They did a lot of those back popular, in the day, Alex.
Yeah.
I remember the 3D thing. They used to get the glasses. Remember
glasses with or without? Yep.
Yeah, with or without, right? With or without the glasses. I remember the Batman in 3D one. That was very crazy.
Batman 3D. There was glasses. I mean, you could a lot of collections. You'd be opening books to grade them, and glasses are falling out left and right.
Yeah, that's funny. Okay, all right, cool, Alex. Seduction of the Innocent 3D number 1, 1985. There are 59 9.8s. It's about a $300 book now. Obviously, the Dave Stevens cover. We'll get back to that in a little bit.
Yeah.
All right, what do we got next, Alex? This is an interesting one. I'm surprised we actually haven't talked about this.
Yeah, Man from U.N.C.L.E.
They're working on a sequel. That's the Henry Cavill film.
Yep.
So they are working on a sequel now. It's been reported, and these books, it was a popular series back in the day, right?
Yeah.
I mean, talk a little bit about Man from U.N.C.L.E, right?
Yeah,
People have heard of it, but they're not really sure what the story is.
I think it wasn't as popular as your Mission Impossible or even the Avengers, which was a little bit earlier. But yeah, it was around this time. It was like spy TV was really big. Get Smart, things like that. I was a fan of Get Smart more than Man from U.N.C.L.E, but it was a spy TV show. Robert Vaughn, who was in a million things in the 80s and 70s. One of those things where you're walking around conventions and you see the vintage toy guys or vintage comic guys, and there's always a Man from Uncle something somewhere. It spawned all these like spy TV shows. And like you said, it made a movie. I don't think the movie did astronomically well, but it was really well received and a lot of people really liked it. So I mean, I think back to Mission Impossible, and like that first movie with Tom Cruise was huge. The second movie, I don't think anybody liked. Like it was panned, and then there was a third movie that people really don't talk about, and then all of a sudden we're talking about multi-million-dollar blockbusters again, and those movies have been going on for years. So it's one of those nostalgia things, and also just gold key photo covers that has a lot to do with it.
Yeah. So Man from Uncle #1, Gold Key, February of 1965. Obviously, the pop is very low, so the numbers are going to be very skewed. There's only 2 9.6s, 9 9.4s, 2 9.2s, and 5 9.0s. A 9.4 recently sold for almost $2,900. You're looking, trying to get the mid-grade ones. Obviously, when the film comes out, these are going to go up. I think you're looking at try to get like a 7.5, 8 clean. You're probably going to get off-white to white pages. You're not going to get white pages most likely. Robert Vaughn photo cover and back cover based on the NBC television series at the time. Paul S. Newman story with Don Heck art. All right. Alex's pick of the week. What do you got for us in our movie theater setting? Here, Alex.
We're going to talk not about one thing. I want to talk about kind of like the state of the industry in regards to original art. And I think most people that are probably watching this, I would assume, know that original comic art is very collectible. It's very sought after. It's a big market. And I know you buy a lot of original art, but I feel like original art, the market wasn't big until maybe 2005, 2004, when it really started taking off. Because I remember going to shows and seeing original art, and people just weren't buying it like they were now. Like I think I bought a couple pages, and they were like random Green Lantern comics from the early 2000s, and they were like $90 a page, full on Green Lantern, like wasn't like background characters or anything, like full on. And then something switched in like the early 2000s where it was like, hey, wait a second, this stuff is actually like super highly collectible. They're one-offs. And now, you look at a modern page of comic art, nothing's cheaper than $150, whether it's got Wolverine in it or not. You're looking at 150 covers or a couple grand. And it's one of those things where I don't think it'll ever slow down. And it's also another thing where if you're not hot on the market, if your finger's not on the pulse, and you're not looking in previews and seeing the next cover and asking, Jenny Frisian to buy the cover of Poison Ivy, and then the book comes out. Yeah, that's what you do. And then that book comes out and it becomes a hot book. That cover that it was, $2,000 is now $5,000, $10,000, and it just goes up and up and up. And I believe, like, and correct me if I'm wrong, like your dad was in some of the forefront of that stuff, of like you guys were like buying art when it wasn't a thing. Like people just didn't care about it as much as they do now.
For sure. My dad had the largest McFarlane collection. We first sold it about 10 years ago. And then for me, if I see something I really like, I reach out to the artist directly. That's the good thing. Because nowadays you can usually find the artist on Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
Usually the tricky part today is figuring out what's computer art and what's original art.
Right.
And then a lot of the computer illustrators, what they're doing now is they're selling these one-of-one prints as the originals, because there is no original artwork. So that's kind of an interesting trend as well. I have not bought into that yet, but there's definitely people who have, and I've seen it. It's not my taste, but you could have said that about original art 20 years ago.
Yeah.
I think the reason why the comic books always had more of a collectible nature to them and transactional value to them is because there were more of them, right? Like on some level, people want to have some comfort that, okay, we know that there's X amount of Action Comics. We know that these trade generally in this range. If I want to get the next copy out of a collector's hands and the market is good and the economy is good and strong, I'm going to need to pay Y or Z. When you're dealing with an original piece of art, if you need 2 buyers that are interested in it, if you only have one, it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
For me, the best thing that ever happened was the Joker cover, the Jock Joker cover. I reached out to him as soon as the catalog hit. Within a day, he called me back and said he got an offer for twice as much, but he had offered it to me. And as long as I paid him that day, he would honor it. And then since then, I was offered a bundle of money for it. It's locked up. And yeah, so that I got very, very fortunate with that. And I've gotten fortunate with other certain artwork over the years. Just I bought Peach Momoko art very, very early on in her career. I just always thought her art was very, very interesting. Alexander Lozano, I have a lot of his early pieces, which he reminds me of. I have two of his favorite pieces from very early on that he sold me that he probably wishes he hadn't. So yeah, that's what you got to do. You got to snatch it up early before it hits the open market.
Yeah, and like you said about that the Jock Joker cover, I mean, when that was solicited and put out, that was early Scott Snyder. He wasn't a name like he was now. And that cover, I believe, is like what the marketing team at DC used for all kinds of stuff. Posters, t-shirts, like that image is on a ton of things, and you own the original art. And like you said, you're just like, hey, I like this. Can I buy it? And you got it. And now you have this piece of art that is historically, going to be around in people's eyes, and posters and books, and the book is worth money.
Yeah.
It's wacky.
The original is even more incredible when you that's the other thing with the original art, is that when you actually get to see it up close, a lot of nuances are lost in the printing and coloring, right, and then the printing and then the logo process. When you actually see the original, it's all the little bats that create the Joker's head and face. And when you actually see the detail that Jock put into those little bats, I mean, you can, just like the McFarlane #1 cover, where you can follow the string throughout the cover. It's not like loose ends all over the place. Jock actually drew all the individual little bats on there. I have a Deadpool cover by Scott Koblish, which has, I think, 300. It was Deadpool 300 had 300 Deadpools on it.
Right.
And he draws, if you again, when you see the cover, it's this size and it's colored and whatever. When you see the original, it's massive, and it's you can see that each individual Deadpool is drawn and articulated, and they're identifiable.
Wacky. Yeah, it's great. It's a great market. I think for it's not a real fans thing. I'm a fan. I don't buy original art, but I mean, it's a really great piece of something to have, especially if it's something from your favorite comic. If it's a cover or a page or anything like that.
For sure. There's a big Dark Knight page coming up soon, by the way, at Heritage. Keep your eye on it. It's got a splash. It's a Splash Batman page, which very rarely come up for sale. Yeah,
definitely.
Take a look
Frank
at
Miller's,
it. All right,
for sure.
All right, cool, Alex. What do we got next? We're back to Dave Stevens, huh?
Dave Stevens. We're going to talk Jungle Comics and Sheena and all that stuff.
Another 3D. So I think this falls under the Dave Stevens category, right?
Yeah,
These 3D
more Dave Stevens covers, Blackthorns. Yep. We're right back to it. And another thing, it's the it's the Cheesecake, the Good Girl covers, and Dave Stevens is very much known for those. And these are, again, the Sheena's got reprints. The Jungle Comics has reprints in it. It's not, no, the Jungle Comics does have original comics in it by Bruce Jones. But it's the Dave Stevens covers, and again, these are stuff from the early '80s when Dave Stevens wasn't who he is now. There's a Johnny Quest line from Kamiko, which nobody really cares about except for two covers, and two of those covers were Dave Stevens. It's him that drives these sales, because they're not worth a lot of money without his covers, but there's not a lot of them in the world. So, it is scarce. Right.
Yeah, so it's a Sheena 3D special from May of 1985. There's actually 77 9.8s. You actually can't find them. I think the Dave Stevens covers collectors have snatched them up. 110 to 125 and 9.6. That means a 9.8 is probably in the $400 or $500 range. Then the other one is Jungle Comics #1 from Blackthorn Publishing from May of '88, 3 years later. There's 6 9.8s, 11 9.6s, and a 9.8 just sold for $900. By the way, Bruce Jones' story, interestingly enough,
early
and he was a very big Hulk, right? He was his Hulk storyline was the big storyline, right?
Yep. For years.
Yeah, for years. And then Dragan Flazik art with a Dave Stevens cover. All right, what are we closing with today, Alex?
Huntress, a Batman
interesting
character.
Right, this book is ticking up, Alex. Not sure why, but maybe you want to talk about it a little bit.
I think you're just looking at fans of the character, and this is one of those characters that literally has been around since the 70s and pops in and out all the time. You saw her in the Birds of Prey movie, you saw her in Arrow. Like, the character Huntress is used constantly, and maybe we would have seen her in the Batgirl movie that is sitting on a cutting room floor somewhere.
Sure.
But you know, again, a character that's just been in the comics for a long time, doesn't necessarily have to be a huge media blockbuster for people to care. People like the character, and again, character's been around for a long time. That you're not going to get you're not going to, you know, you're not going to not have that character around. So people are you know, collecting that character. That's what they get. I'm a Plastic Man guy. I try to get all the Plastic Man appearances.
Right. Plastic Man, I loved Plastic Man when I was a kid.
Great.
Okay, so DC Superstars number 17, November to December of 1977. There's actually 46 9.8s. 9.8 recently sold for $900. Marriage of Earth 2, Batman and Catwoman, Origin of Green Arrow and Huntress. Paul Levitt story in there. Wow, Mike Grell, Juan Ortiz, Joe Staton, and Bob Layton cover. Interesting. Okay, then Huntress number 1, April of 1989. There are 142 9.8s, and that's a $200 book. They printed a lot of copies of that book. I remember when it came out. Origin and first appearance of the new Huntress, Helena Bertinelli, Joey Cavalieri's story. Oh, Joe Cavalieri, right? He was in Marvel later on, right?
Yep.
Joe Staton and Bruce Patterson cover and art. And then the book to find, if you can find one, is the newsstand cover. Can't find it. 2 9.8s. Impossible to find. You can't even find them raw.
Tough one.
So yeah, so that does it. All right. Well, we thank you for joining us today. We like our little movie theater thing. I think each week we'll do a new theme. And if you have any questions or comments, leave them in this field below. Otherwise, we will see you all next week. Same bad time.
Same bad channel.